Hey everybody, I'm Rich Dotson with dynastynerds.com.
And I'm Matt O'Hara.
Welcome to another show where today we're going to talk about different league settings and formats for your Dynasty leagues.
There's so many different ways to set up your Dynasty league and run them.
Superflex.
Tight end premium.
I'm sitting on a premium right now.
1 QB league.
Let's check it out.
Ready, set, hut, hut. Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast. I am your host, Rich Dotson, here with my fellow nerd, Matt O'Hara.
Hello, Rich.
I didn't do that.
I know. I was waiting. I was waiting.
One week I'll remember, 1 week I won't.
I was waiting to see what you were doing.
Just the two of us today.
I know.
No producer.
I can roll with the punches.
No Garrett Price.
Nope.
No Jared.
Nope.
They're out there like swapping spit. They're both sick.
They are.
They're like, hey, we're sick. Do you want us to come? We're like, no.
No. 100% no.
I'm sick and tired of you asking me those stupid questions. So it's just us today, and we're talking about some topics about league formats and settings.
Yep.
It's a good time of the year for that, where a lot of people are going to be out there starting new Dynasty leagues.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
And it's funny because I got a question on Twitter an hour ago going, hey, I'm going to start a new Dynasty league. How do you think I should set it up? I'm like, well, that's just funny you asked, because check out our show tomorrow on either YouTube or anywhere you can find a Dynasty podcast, and we're going to be talking about just that topic.
That same subject. What a quinky dink.
I was going to say subject, and I said topic, and I was like, oh, I should have said subject.
I'm like the yin to your yang. It's perfect.
Thanks, Jen.
I complete you.
So let's start off with the top of the format before we get into some like of those special nuances that we do in leagues that we feel. You and I have been playing Dynasty for over 17 years.
Right.
And, we've learned a thing or two.
Has it been that long?
It's been a long time.
It has. I had no gray
2003
hairs when we started.
is when we started the league.
Now they're starting to creep in.
Yeah, look at you. I had no kids.
I know.
I've owned a couple houses since then. I've had a couple kids, a couple dogs.
Watched a movie here and there.
Started a website. Started a podcast. And we've been talking Dynasty ever since we started the league.
Yeah.
So we've learned a couple things about what works. So now the big thing here is for Dynasty, I think, to start off, Matt, most importantly, is like what works for your league. It doesn't matter what works for us. Like you can take Dynasty so far from when it rules, like the Scott Fishbowl rules to just regular like redraft rules. Like, hey, 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end. Please don't use kickers and defenses. We'll talk about that too.
Right. And I think the important thing is to know that what's right for us and what works for us might not work for you. So it's kind of one of those things that you have to evolve with, I think, the group that you're with, right? And kind of have let the group and their thoughts and kind of their feelings and what they're comfortable with kind of guide it to where it's going to ultimately be. Because most of the time, most of the leagues that I've been in started, I think, one way and kind of evolved throughout the first 3 or 4 years. I would say.
It should be. It's a long-term commitment for everybody. So that's a good way to put it. Start off is no matter what league you're in, the commissioner should have one big task: is collecting the money and make sure everybody gets paid. Besides that, every league should be run like a democracy, right? Every year at the end of the year, hey, let's put does anybody have any suggested rule changes, right? If you do, let's put it to a vote. And that vote should, yeah,
exactly. Whoever, the majority should win out. That's how we run our leagues. Obviously, that's not going to work for everybody. There are certain leagues where you don't know everybody, and there'll be like a person or 2 or 3 or 4 that really don't want to get with the program, I guess, and
get with the program
and be cool.
Be cool.
So there are certain times when a commissioner will have to flex their muscles, but for the most part, it should be run and organized and configured by the people that are in the league. That's how you have a healthy league and a league that's gonna last, I think.
Nothing's worse than a folding Dynasty league,
right?
Because you make all these trades. It's a problem. A lot of people will make trades for the future, and there's no future.
Right.
You just wasted your money.
Exactly.
Nobody likes wasting money.
Nobody likes wasting money. Nobody likes wasting time. Like no one's going to be here forever, Let's not waste time. Well, cross your fingers all you want. God's made billions and billions of people, and none of them have lasted. They've all died.
There's got to be a first, right? There's got to be a first. My Dynasty team will live forever. I'm leaving it to my kids.
There you go.
And then they're going to leave it to their kids. It's going to be my will. Like, you want any of my money? Like, yeah, Dad, we want your $8.
You have to keep the cardiac kids alive.
Here's the thing. I left you $5,000 for your entry fees for all my leagues. That will cover 1 year.
If you do it right, you'll make money.
Yeah, I set you up. You have 7 2082 first.
Exactly.
Okay? You are set up for success.
2082. That's very ambitious.
Be 103.
Yeah, you'll be 103.
By then I'll still be healthy.
Yeah.
Cross my fingers. That'd be nice. I've been playing Dynasty for 75 years. So let's start off with the top, Matt. Superflex 1 QB. Let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite?
Obviously, you would ask this to me 5 years ago. I would say 1 QB because Superflex was kind of just coming on the scene, and I hadn't played in it, and I didn't know much about it. But nowadays, I feel like the way that most leagues are run scoring-wise, Superflex, I think, is the way that I prefer to play.
Yeah, Superflex tight end premium is my favorite too.
Yeah.
It gives everybody a fair shake at value, which is it's important.
Right. Obviously, the 1 QB leagues, there's a glut at the position. You know what I mean? There's a couple of top guys, like 2 or 3 guys a year that are the difference makers. And then the guys 3 or 4 to 12 or 13 are very similar on a per game basis, I'd say. So there's not much of a differentiation. So if you stretch it out and you make everyone start or you don't make them, but in a super flex, most of the time the best option is a second quarterback. It kind of evens that out a little bit and makes the position of quarterback worthwhile. And in the real game, it's the most important position on the field. You know what I mean? So it at least boosts them up and kind of makes them even with some of these other positions, I think.
Yeah, of course, Superflex, you start 2 quarterbacks. Superflex tight end premium is where, anytime you mention tight end premium, they get either 1.5 to 2 points per reception. To give that tight end a little bit boost too, because those are the two in a 1 QB league. They're the ugly stepsister,
right? Absolutely,
or stepbrother, but they're ugly either way. You care about them a little bit less. And like you said, in a 1 QB league, you could stream quarterbacks, right? You could just constantly trade for that older quarterback. Right. They're less valuable because you only start 12 of them overall, so they're not as important, even though it's the most important position in football and in fantasy football. They give you the most points, so it should be qualified as equal value to a running back or a wide receiver.
Right. And in a 1 QB league, there's probably 2 different, I think, major philosophies on how to approach the quarterback in 1 QB leagues. And it's, you get a guy and you keep trying to get a guy that's going to be your 15-year starter so you don't have to worry about it, which is nice, which is awesome. It doesn't always work out that way because there's a lot of misses at the position as far as drafting. But another way to go on the converse is wait until you're competing and just spend it on an older guy like an Aaron Rodgers type of player who's past his prime but has 3 or 4 really good seasons in him, and he's definitely good enough at the position to get you to a championship and push you over the line.
And all teams in 1 QB leagues, if you get a guy like Rodgers, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning played for a while, those teams will go through their cycles of being a competitor to having to rebuild. So they will become available at some point, exactly, unless you become fond of them. Like I've had Drew Brees on my team all 17 years of the league. Or going into year 18 if he still plays. And I would never trade him.
And he was never even available. And I was in that league the entire time. He was never available for trade.
I would never make him available.
Right.
So, but you're right. You're looking for that guy like Kyler Murray. If you drafted Justin Herbert, you hope Joe Burrow turns into that guy. Right. You draft Trevor Lawrence this year in a 1 QB league. You hope to do that and just stop. But I personally think the best position is what you said is draft those guys when they just fall to you, right? In the second round. Like I would never invest a first round pick in a quarterback in a 1 QB league. Literally never. Right. I would never, no matter how good Trevor Lawrence is.
Not even Trevor Lawrence?
No. And you would say right around pick 10, it'd have to be a bad class. But if there's any kind of value at running back, tight end, or receiver. I would rather go that route and then, like you said, trade for a quarterback.
Right.
But you'll see in those 1 QB leagues too, those quarterbacks always fall the second round, third round, fourth round sometimes. But usually you can get a solid quarterback in the third round of a 1 QB league. A guy like Trey Lance will not go until the third round of this year's draft. A guy like Justin Fields might go late second.
Right.
A guy like Zach Wilson, late second. So even as a competitor, you can wait on that second best quarterback and grab those guys. Whereas Superflex League, those quarterbacks are going 1, 2, 3, 4, if not close to that, right? You might see a variance where like Najee Harris goes, Travis Etienne, Jamar Chase, but then Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, they're top 8 in the first round, no matter what.
No doubt about it. Yeah.
Even a guy like Mac Jones is going to go possibly late first to high second.
I feel like he's going to fall into that Daniel Jones type of range where he's too good of a value for me to pass up maybe that late, but I can see him kind of sliding to the second round in some Superflex drafts as well.
So why I like Superflex versus 1 QB and then tight end premium, of course, we're going to hear in a second as well, is because when you create more value for players, it makes the league more fun because it creates more needs and it makes more trades come involved. And what does we love? In Dynasty, we love the startup drafts, and then we love making trades, right? And we love drafting rookies. That's what we love to do. Who we drafting, who we trading, when can I start another league?
Yeah,
that's Dynasty.
You'll pick up a gem every now and again on the waiver wire, but the way that we run our leagues, we have super deep rosters on everybody, so there's not a lot on there. The main ways you're going to get guys is what you just mentioned there.
And that's how it should be. Yeah. So to create that, first off, like you said, to create that balance of need, and the balance of need creates trades, which always makes it, if you got to make trades, you got to interact with your league mates, and you got to make trade proposals. You got to go back and forth, see who's going to get the best of the trade, who's getting lubed up, who's not getting lubed up, and hopefully you're doing a lubing.
The banter and that kind of stuff, it makes for a healthy league. Like you said, you get out there and you interact with the people in your league, even if they're strangers to begin with. These are people that you'll get to know them. At least you'll get to know their tendencies. Even if you don't get to know them personally, you'll get to know their tendencies, and that's at least half the battle there. And you'll kind of get on some even ground with these people and get to know them as far as what they're looking for. Yeah, exactly.
There's people I'm in leagues with, since we started the site 7 years ago, like Colleen Cassie. I've become friends with her over the leagues, over the years. And there's other people I've met, like Paul Winter, I've met that have been coming through town that we'd meet in a league. And a lot of my leagues that are old, even though these guys I've never met, we're on the app GroupMe for a group chat all the time. If you put all of us in a room together, like we'd all be able to hang out, have a beer, and talk for hours and hours on end because we become friends. We're not friends in real life, but we are Dynasty fantasy football friends, and you can grow that camaraderie. And to do that, so you want to start off with roster sizes. We always do our leagues 30-man rosters.
Right.
I think the most common would probably be 25-man rosters, but we do 30-man rosters for the simple fact that the less the waiver wire is, the less luck there is in Dynasty fantasy football. And we don't want luck involved. This isn't a redraft.
No, I totally agree with you. To the point where, we recently, this past year, we started a 14-team league, and the roster sizes were 25 just because we thought with the extra 2 teams that we'd limit them to 25. And in that league, I still wish they were 30 because there's people that I want to pick up that I can't because I can't cut anyone from my team. So that one in a 14-person league is still, in my opinion, needs to be expanded.
I need more. I need more spots.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so you want to do the 30 because then it forces people to make trades, right? Again, you want your league set up, was what we found out, is the only way to better your roster is either through draft picks or through trades.
And that wasn't something we came upon to begin with. That was something that we grew. That was one of these things that evolved over time. It was, I want to say we started at around 20.
Yeah, I think in 2003 we started a 20-man roster. I think it's the same thing, like a 20 rounds. Like, this isn't enough.
Yeah, and we quickly figured out it wasn't enough. So we kind of went on a plan where every year we added, I think, 5 spots or 2 spots, 5. I can't remember what it was. We gradually got to the 30 that we're at though, over at least 2 years, maybe 3 years.
And 25 is okay, but you got to imagine the difference between 25 and 30, you're literally talking about 60 extra players that are available. That's a lot of players on a waiver wire that would be rostered in most leagues. So I think 30 is the best.
I personally think that's where we landed. That's the sweet spot we landed on. any more than that, and you're just gonna have a bunch of junk on the bottom of your roster that really shouldn't even be rostered. But any less than that, and there's some valuable pieces out there that people, like you said, it makes people less inclined to feel the need to go out and make a trade because there's somebody that, hey, that guy's got some potential. Why would I trade for X, Y, and Z people off your roster when I have got just as good a shot as this guy hitting that's off the waiver wire?
And it comes in handy with situations where like you might find where like a guy like Garrett Gilbert for Texas or for the Cowboys, right? Mm-hmm. Garrett Gilbert would never be on anybody's roster in a 1 QB league, but in a Superflex league,
yeah,
he might be owned because of Dak Prescott. And then all of a sudden Dak Prescott goes down. Garrett Gilbert's going to get a start. You could trade Garrett Gilbert all of a sudden for potentially a 3rd round pick in a nice draft class.
Exactly, out of nowhere. I mean, that's just free money you're playing with there, which is awesome. And that keeps things churning. And that that's coming from a competitor. The competitor is the only person that would make that kind of trade. So that's a move that they felt like they needed to make to win a game that week. You know what I mean? It wasn't a long-term play, but they were willing to give up a 3rd-round draft pick for some short-term gains there for 1 or 2 or 3 weeks until they plug that hole on a more permanent basis.
Because there's nobody on the waiver wire.
Right, exactly.
And that is always the key. You want the waiver wire to be very limited. So in a 1 QB league, obviously there's less value on those quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. And the backup quarterbacks are going to be not rostered for the most part. Maybe a guy like Andy Dalton might be on a roster, but even then it's easier to cut. Tight end premium. Like, why tight end premium? Why would you have a tight end premium league in Dynasty Fantasy Football?
In my opinion, it's one of those things, again, if you do Superflex and you add in tight end premium, the roster configurations then become much more interesting, in my opinion. You can now plug a tight end in where you would normally play a second quarterback. You're plugging in a tight end and you're still getting a lot of points out of that position now. So now you're making the tight end position even more interesting. Another position which is a little top heavy. There's usually about 3 or 4 guys every year that are. I mean, there's Travis Kelce and George Kittle, and then there's kind of 2 or 3 guys that are middle tier guys.
Oh, T.J. Hawkins is my number 2 overall Dynasty tight end.
All right. So there's a total of maybe 5 guys that are good. And then from 6 to 16 or something, they're all very similar players.
Well, the 1.5 per reception helps a little bit more. And like you said, I think a big misconception in super flex leagues is like an extra flex spot, you have to start a quarterback.
Right.
No, not so fast, Pat Sajak.
It's most of the time in a normal super flex league that isn't tight end premium, it's what you're going to start 9 times out of 10. But like you said,
tight end premium, you have George Kittle, Mark Andrews, T.J. Hawkinson. You have a flex spot and a super flex spot.
Darren Waller was another one that I was forgetting.
You could put him right into your roster, and they could score just as much, if not more points than a guy like possibly Kirk Cousins, certainly Drew Lock. That kind of situation. So, and again, it makes another position more valuable. So now when you come to your rookie draft, now you're looking at this in a super flex tight end premium league. You're looking like, oh, wow, look how deep this class is. Mm-hmm. Those second-round picks are extremely valuable. Where in a 1 QB league, you're like, oh, okay, well, no quarterback in the first, maybe Trevor Lawrence. Kyle Pitts still in the first, but besides that, no big deal. Superflex, you're like, okay, we've got 5 first-round quarterbacks. We got Kyle Pitts. We got Brevin. We got Pat Freiermuth here, 3 tight ends that are all pretty solid. Kyle Pitts can go to Superflex tight end premium league as high as number 4 overall, and you can't complain about it.
And all that does is lengthen the amount of quality draft picks that you're getting, instead of, like you said, all these picks being just first round guys. Now all of a sudden you're still getting quality people in the second round that would go normally in a 1 QB league in the first round.
Yeah. So Jalen Waddle goes from like 4th overall in a 1 QB to like 12th possibly.
It's the same thing as in the NFL draft when all these quarterbacks get pushed up every single year. All it does is really it pushes back quality guys to other teams that don't need quarterbacks a little bit farther in the draft.
And if you love Dynasty and you're a 1 QB league and everybody wants to once you do one Dynasty league, it's your first one, you got to do another one.
Right.
Like it's absolutely mandatory that you start new leagues. You got to do at least 3 in my eyes.
It's not mandatory, but
mandatory.
But good luck getting away, with just doing one.
Yeah, because what you do after you do the first year, like, oh, if I would only know what I know now and I did a startup, I would crush it. And then you do a startup, like, how did I mess that one up too? I got to do another one.
Exactly. Like I clearly remember my first draft, and I went completely young. Like, this was the first time we ever did Dynasty. There was no websites. Yeah, there was no websites. There was no nothing. I went completely young, and I was like, see you guys in 2006. And I said it out loud, and you know what? My team was garbage. It took me forever to dig out of that hole because I just went too young, and it was too much risk, and a lot of those picks bombed. And I can still see people nowadays thinking the same thing. When you're new to Dynasty, you're thinking, man, I'm going to do like a Madden type of thing and just rebuild an entire team from scratch, and it's going to be all young players, and I'm going to build them up, and it's going to be great, and it's going to all come together. It's not the way it never works out. It's not the way it ends up working.
We've been playing a while. I've never seen that work.
No, you need it.
And I'm in a lot of leagues.
You need a mix of both. But it's interesting. I mean, it's great. It's great just thinking about startups. But yeah, good luck doing one, and not getting the itch and doing a second.
So you should at least try a Superflex tight end premium league, and I promise you're going to love it. Like, if you love Dynasty, you should have that league. You should have a 1 QB league in your back pocket as well. You should absolutely try a Superflex league and get into one of those. And worst case, if you don't like it, be that jerk and back out after a year or two. But give it some time.
Don't be that jerk. And another option, if you're not going to jump right into the Superflex tight end premium type of stuff, you don't want to get crazy with that. Think of creative ways to, I think, tweak your scoring system. And the one that this past year that we did in the Scott Fishbowl, I think was really interesting. And go ahead and speak about it a little bit, because I can't remember all of the nuances of it, but I know it was you lose a point per incompletion, right? You get a half a point per completion. And then there was a big bonus, a first down bonus as well. You get a
first down bonus.
You get a point for first down, and you lost a lot of points for interceptions, if memory serves me. And
I can't remember the exact amount you lost.
I think it was 2, and then was it 4? Only 4 for a passing touchdown.
I don't recall the touchdowns too, but I love the 4. Like, it was a Superflex league, tight end premium, same concept, but yeah. It really changed the quarterback skews here, where the really good quarterbacks that were accurate got huge, massive games, and then the bad quarterbacks that were not would get negative points.
It trued up the quarterback position, because, I mean, from a fantasy perspective, you can have guys that aren't necessarily the best quarterbacks, but they're still hitting big plays. They're doing, you know what I mean? They're throwing 50% completion, but the passes they're completing are bombs down the field, and they end up being touchdowns, and you score a lot of fantasy points. But it's not like it doesn't necessarily equate to a good NFL quarterback. And I feel like there's some systems, and it's specifically the one that we were just talking about, I think tilts the field towards the actual better, more skilled quarterbacks.
I saw a lot of analysts out there really like what Scott Fish did, and Scott Fish is somebody who's been running the Scott Fish Bowl for a long time, and he's been tweaking it, and I think he's come up with a pretty good system that's almost perfect, right?
Yeah.
The first downs, you get a point per reception, 1.5 for tight ends. You get a point, even tight end premium, I think you get 1.5 for a first down for a tight end either as well. But you get the points for the first downs, which count because it's a big play. You get a first down.
Absolutely.
Definitely. So it helps the running backs out big time as well. It actually just which is, if you want to look at it that way too, it really makes the receiver the least valuable player. Which makes sense because there's so many of them.
There are so many of them. I was going to say the exact same thing.
There's more now than ever. With this rookie class coming in this year, these last couple of rookie classes, with already the extremely talented young guys out there, next year's rookie class, it's such a huge, massive influx of talent at wide receiver. So it makes it the least, still very valuable for the top end guys, but the least valuable position. So
I just heard we should be advocating for 4 starting wide receivers now. Is that what I'm hearing?
Why not? Why not? And that's what's good about Dynasty. You can set up any way you want. You can have a super flex spot, and then you have his main flex spot. I've seen people have 5 flex spots.
Yeah.
Scott Fishbowl, they have like 4 flex spots.
And the fun of the flex spots and having multiple flex spots is navigating bye weeks becomes a lot easier, because then all of a sudden you don't have to have, oh man, I need 4 running backs. All of a sudden you don't. You need 3 running backs and 5 wide receivers, or any kind of different kind of configuration of your roster you really want. As long as you can plug them in, they're giving you that 15 to 20 points or whatever. It doesn't matter how you're getting it, from what position if you have all these flex spots and there's a lot of flexibility.
So Scott Fishbowl gives you that, the quarterback bonus tiers. There's always bonuses. Some people have leagues where if the person goes over 100 yards, you get an extra 10 points. If you do, there's so many different options you can do for bonuses. If a quarterback throws for over 300 yards, you get a bonus. If they get a kick return, it's a bonus. There's so many different ways you go to bonuses. You can do tiered PPR.
That's what I was gonna mention that. So explain the tiered PPR, because I haven't been in a league with it, but I kind of know what it is.
So a tiered PPR, it makes the reception a little bit more value to scale, kind of like the 2 QB league, where a running back will only get a half a point per reception, a wide receiver get 1 point per reception, and then a tight end 1.5 points per reception. So a tiered PPR. So a lot of people that will complain about when you hear people complain about PPR, like, well, why does a running back get a point for a little dump off pass, right? And he's getting 10 dump offs at the end of the points, and that's 7 points. It's like, okay, well, it's PPR. So some people will tier that where the running back only gets a half a point per reception, which I understand. I'm not for it. I'm all for the number 1 point for a full reception.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a reception's a reception, but I get where people are coming from, because a guy like Tariq Cohen a couple of years ago, not necessarily a special player by any means, but he was startable in your league, and it was because he was catching a bunch of passes. And it's not like he was catching a bunch of passes 30 yards downfield like a wide receiver is. He was mostly catching dump off passes. And
J.D. McKissick this year,
yeah, absolutely.
And then you're hurting those kind of guys. So J.D. McKissick's, Nyheim Hines, Duke Johnson's, Tariq Cohen's, those guys get hurt big time when you take away the PPR. That's why I like the PPR, because it gives those guys value, right? It keeps those guys flowing, keeps that running back position abundant with guys you could put in your roster. Because if not, you're never starting a guy like Nyheim Hines. You're never starting a guy like, well, you still play those guys, but they even less value.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think, you're going to run into some people that like the glut at the position, and the fact that you have, I mean, even with those guys included, there's by no means a glut at the running back position, but there's some people that are going to say, hey, I want it to be hard to get running backs, because it's a tough position to fill in fantasy football. From the first time I ever played fantasy football, it's been hard to find a running back, and I don't want to make it any easier. So I'm going to do this tiered thing. So I guess that's the argument for it. I'm with you on that. I don't really love it. To take a half a point away from a running back because he's catching a 3-yard dump off pass. I mean, a lot can be said. Same thing can be said about a lot of tight ends.
Those are hard to do sometimes. Yeah. Some quarterbacks can't make that throw. I saw Brandon Whedon. He couldn't throw the running back.
No,
you're going for it.
Derek Anderson used to throw lasers 3 yards away. Good luck catching that.
But again, these are all things you talk about before you even start your league. Hey, do you guys want to do 1 QB, tight end premium? Right. Everybody makes their case. You guys want to do the Scott Fishbowl scoring? Do you want to do bonuses? Do you want to do tiered PPR? Do you want to add kickers, defense? We'll talk about that later. There's a lot of different things we're going to talk about here, too, to help better the league. But before we do that, let's talk about one of our great sponsors, and that is Prediction Strike. Do you wish you could have had stock in a guy like Derrick Henry before this season? Well, now Prediction Strike makes that a real possibility. Prediction Strike is the only performance-based sports stock market where you can buy and sell shares of professional athletes as if they were real stocks. Prediction Strike lets fans create portfolios of their favorite athletes so they can get even closer to the game. Don't just draft your favorite players, start investing in them. Simply visit PredictionStrike.com or download their app on the App Store to create an account. Then deposit funds to buy, sell, and hold shares of your favorite players, just like you would real stocks. The value of players will change based upon game performance, and you can trade your shares of players at any time, as long as that player isn't currently in a game. They also just rolled out a new feature where you can join leagues and add friends to see what athletes they're buying stock in, how they're performing, and if your friends' portfolios are actually better than yours. Sign up today with the promo code Dynasty to receive a free $10 with your first $20 deposit or more. And again, this app at PredictionStrike.com, use that code Dynasty to get that free $10. And what we talk about off the air and amongst ours, and even in our Dynasty Nerds Slack channel, is wow, Prediction Strike is set up perfectly for the Dynasty player, because we're all about buying in at the right time and selling at the right time. That is Dynasty fantasy football in a nutshell. So we know ahead of time, like DeAndre Swift's going to have a pretty good year this year. Mm-hmm. Like who are some of those sleeper guys? Some guys we're going to talk in the Nerd Herd episode next. Like, who are going to be some bounce back guys? Invest in there, make a little bit of money, use that promo code Dynasty, and you'll get that free $10. Check it out. Put in that $20. I promise, as a Dynasty player, you will like it because you're going to make some money.
Yeah, plus I think that's a pretty cool feature that you can see what your friends' portfolios look like, and kind of compare and contrast and see how you're doing versus them. I think that's a neat 100%. Feature.
So let's talk about some other things here about league setups. Deep benches, we talked about that already, about the 30-man rosters, why that's a bonus.
Right.
Now, taxi squads. If you don't have a taxi squad for your Dynasty league, you're not doing Dynasty right.
No, that I feel like is the number one must. Like that was... obviously when we first started, there weren't sites that had taxi squads, separate taxi squads or anything like that. We went as far as I created a sheet, like a spreadsheet basically, and tracked everyone's from there. It was a nightmare.
Yeah, we ran it on Yahoo.
Yeah, we ran it on Yahoo.
Pick people up off the waiver wire.
Exactly. So there's player on the waiver wire that you couldn't actually pick up because they were on somebody else's taxi squad. No one ever checked, and all I did was
a couple of people didn't.
All I ever did was chase after people and yell at them for picking up other players' taxi squad members. But nowadays, obviously, it's come a long way, and there are plenty of sites out there that caddy to the taxi squads. There's obviously MFL.
MyFantasyLeague.com.
MyFantasyLeague.com. There's Sleeper. That's
Flea Flicker.
Flea Flicker is the other one. I'm sure there's a couple of other ones that also have taxi squads at this point, but those are the ones that I know of for now.
Yeah, those are great sites. And when we started Dynasty, playing Dynasty when there's no websites, nothing like that, and we just made up the rules as we went. A lot of those have come to be like mainstream rules.
Yeah.
But we called them practice squads at the time.
Right.
So why is a taxi squad important? Well, one, it allows you to draft a quarterback or a tight end or a receiver, and some of those players take 2 to 3 years to develop, right? Well, you need a place for them to develop without having to worry about cutting them if they're not that good. So we put them on your taxi squad. Now, the taxi squad means they're not a part of they don't count against your 30-man main roster. We have it where you can promote or demote those players on a taxi squad as long as you want. We do the rights for 3 years. That's how we run our leagues. You have the rights to a player for 2 years.
2 years.
Sorry,
third
2 years.
Third year you have to roster them. Yep.
And after 3 years, you have to decide either bring them off your taxi squad on your main roster or they do enter free agency. And that's where free agents come from. Now, to do that, again, having a taxi squad promotes trades and it promotes, trading for draft picks. Because if you don't, why have a lot of draft picks if you have no room on your roster to put them?
Right, absolutely, and the fact that there's that point which is great, but there's also, you get a kind of a snapshot of what you have coming, and it almost forces your hands to make some moves. You take a look, like say 2 years ago, you drafted 7 players, and 5 of them are looking like they have some potential. You're going to bring 3 of them up. And the other 2 you think have pretty good potential, and you only have room on your roster for 3 players. Like you can cut 3 players off you have to make a move. That's someone that's you yourself have to go out there and kind of search somebody. Hey, who can I make a 2-for-1 deal with, or who can I unload 2 players and get a draft pick in return? And it forces the hand, and it happens to me all the time. 30-man rosters seem big until you maybe
get to cut somebody?
Yeah, until you have to cut
all
somebody. Yeah, exactly. And then you're like, crap, man, I do not want to cut any of these. All these players have some value somewhere. And I don't want to just throw them out to the waiver wire. So I have to make a move somewhere. And it forces your hand. It forces people that normally just want to be stingy and get as many good players as possible. It forces them to move on from some guys and make some trades that maybe they wouldn't make if there wasn't a taxi squad.
And you got to be in position to be able to blow up your team and trade for lots of draft picks. If we do 6-man rookie drafts is what we do in our league.
6 round. Yep.
6-round rookie drafts. For most people do 4 to 5 rounds. That's fine. Again, in our leagues, we wanted to be very limited on the waiver wire. So we do 6-round rookie drafts. Because by the end of the 6th round, you're like, okay, there's not many players left here. And if you were to trade away your team and you trade away 5 players for complete drafts, right? So now you have 30 draft picks in a draft. That's your whole roster of one rookie. You need somewhere to be able to put those players. And we do unlimited taxi squad because I see where they want to limit taxi squads. Like, oh, let's only make it a 10-man taxi squad. No,
What's the point of that?
What's the point? You're limited trading for draft picks.
Right.
Again, you can't. Why would you want to trade for a whole bunch of draft picks if you have to roster them? You just won't do it. So it limits your league. And what you don't want to do is limit your league on trades. You want to make trades as abundant and plentiful as possible. So by limiting your taxi squad, you're limited trades for draft picks, which are one of the most common assets traded in all of Dynasty Fantasy Football.
Absolutely. So, I mean, to put it in a nutshell, you don't want to limit the size of the roster, and you don't want to limit the taxi squad at all. And you want to have it. I think anything more than 2 years is too much. But anything less than 2 years is too little. So for me, I mean, we tinkered with it a little bit. There was a couple of year span there where we expanded the taxi squad to 3 years for the quarterback position, and I feel like that got messy and weird, and I didn't like how the 3 year rule. I wouldn't have liked the 3 year rule. I think for anybody. Yeah, you know what I mean. Right. It got too much. There was too much slack. Everything gets a little stagnant when you extend the taxi squad too long. So I feel like we nailed it. I think 2 years is the sweet spot for that as well. So,
it's because you usually know if a player's, and after 2 years, you should know if a player's getting worth rostering or not worth rostering. And sometimes you make those cuts and those guys pan out, and you're like, shit.
Yeah,
messed up.
Right? No, there's the Corey Davises. There's the Devontae Parkers who take 4 years sometimes and come out of the blue.
And sometimes you can use that in your favor, right? Like I'm in a league where I had Joe Burrow. And my team was not good. It was not going to be competitive. It was super flex. I drafted Joe Burrow, and I had other guys in my roster that I didn't want to cut. So even though Joe Burrow would have helped my team be a little bit better, I just left him on my taxi squad.
Yeah.
Now, some people call that intentional tanking, but he's on my taxi squad. So my argument was like, why should I have to cut somebody to bring somebody up on a team that's not competitive anyways, right? I understood their point, but there's a way to manipulate the taxi squad. If you don't like that, you put into a rule saying, hey, if that player is worth starting, like I wouldn't just start if I didn't have any quarterback to start, I would bring Joe Burrow up and start him.
Correct.
But I would put him back down, right? Like I'm in a league where we can start, I have a good roster, one of our leagues where you can start 3 running backs. I have Clyde Edwards-Helaire on my taxi squad, and he will stay there because I'm starting Saquon Barkley, Dalvin Cook, and Jonathan Taylor. So I don't need Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Right. And just where other teams may start him, it's the same instance, right? We're not bringing up the quarterback. Now, I needed Joe Burrow, but I don't need Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And the big thing is, my argument is, okay, if I bring Joe Burrow up, I have to cut somebody.
Somebody you don't want to necessarily cut.
And maybe there's nobody I want to cut. So even though I can start Joe Burrow and he's better, but I don't have to right now, why do I want to bring Joe? Like, why do I want to cut somebody if I don't want to cut him?
I understand your logic and your argument. I would make room to do it. And
I get it.
Yeah.
I understand why you'd be against it, but there's no rules for it. I'm just telling you, there's ways to manipulate it.
There are ways to manipulate it, and you have to, I think, either get out in front of that and make a rule like you said, or you're going to have to let things like that slide because it's subjective.
It is very subjective.
And
but here's the counterpoint of that too. So my team is bad in that league, right? Mm-hmm. So your point is like you're bad. You should be starting Joe Burrow. He's one of your better players. But what if you're not like the counterpoint then would be is if you have two good. Here's where it gets messy though. It's easy for that when you're bad. But say you have a team, you traded for a pick, you got a good player, and you got a guy like Jonathan Taylor, for example.
Yeah.
Jonathan Taylor is really good, or not even Jonathan Taylor, maybe like a guy like Antonio Gibson who finishes running back 1. It's not Jonathan Taylor; he's high end,
right? Too
but
high.
A guy like a guy like Antonio Gibson who finishes running back 1, and you have your rosters, 25-man rosters, and your running back situation is good. You just ended up drafting Antonio Gibson in the second round, and you have 5 good running backs, and the rest of your team is really good. You've drafted really competitive. You're a championship caliber team. All your players are good. Now, you have 5 running backs on your roster. Only 2 of them are better than Antonio Gibson. Would you have to bring Antonio Gibson up then to be a little bit better?
No.
So that's what I'm saying. That's where it gets really messy and subjective.
That's what I mean. I think I would not be happy if your scenario had played out.
Yeah.
But there wouldn't be anything I could do about it. So I would just have to live with it.
That's what I told the guys in the rule because somebody brought it up. I didn't even finish with the number 1 pick, and I was like, listen, if you guys don't like the rule, we can vote on it at the end of the year and change it. But, like, again, it just gets The problem is it makes sense there.
Yeah.
But then the counterpoint is like, well, if I had to bring up Joe Burrow, he's got to bring up Antonio Gibson.
Right.
Well, I don't want to cut this guy who's good. Well, I didn't want to cut that guy. I didn't want to cut, I don't know who. I didn't want to cut Nelson Aguilar.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's
Sure.
It can get like that. I'm just telling you, it can get messy both ways.
It definitely can. That's why I suggest making a rule for it so it doesn't get messy. But if you don't have a rule and that particular instance comes up, like I said, you can not like it, but there's not really much you can do.
That rule would have to be worded
subjective.
very, very finely. Because again, like, oh, if you have a player on your roster who's worth starting, you got to bring him up. Well, okay. Well, who is it? A wide receiver 3 worth a start? Where do you draw the line?
No.
So the simplest way is like you have the rights to 2. I just like it simple. You have the rights to that player for 2 years. You could bring him up off your taxi squad or not as often as you like. As often as you like, and it's up to you.
Yep.
And if you don't want to win,
start your best lineup. Taxi squad is what it is.
It is drastically different between having a player on your active roster and not starting them than somebody in your taxi squad. Because again, you're forced to cut somebody. And I just don't like the idea of ever making anybody cut anybody, no matter what you think of that player.
Right.
He's a turd or he's not a turd.
That's where the subjectiveness comes in. Because that person could value them much higher than you do for whatever reason.
And I've seen other people do it too. And I've never thought, see, I'm different. I've never thought twice about it. I'm just like, oh, okay, whatever. I see what he's doing here, but that's fine. Like he's rebuilding. That's fine. I get it.
I get it. I don't love it.
And the same.
Do you know what I mean? Like I said,
I don't love it.
There's no rule against it, so there's nothing I can really do about it.
I don't love it, but I think that I personally think it's how it should be. Same reason if you have a good roster mid-season, right? And there is a guy on the waiver wire, and your team's pretty solid, and you can't pick. You're like, oh man, I want to pick this guy up. Like, oh, who do I cut? Who do I cut?
Right.
Who do I cut? There's my cut. Oh, but I have Jonathan Taylor. I could put him on my taxi squad. Now, obviously, if you can put him on there, you have other good running backs, right?
Sure.
People might not like that move of putting Jonathan Taylor on your taxi squad, but you're doing it so you can pick up another player that might be a potential asset down
the new hotness. Yeah.
It's the same exact thing that I would. You know what I mean? It's the same exact thing because he might be the only player you have the option to put on your taxi squad. I've been there too, where I'm like, oh man, I don't want to put this player on my taxi squad because I need him, but I really want to pick up this player. And I've done that. You know, I put that player on knowing I'm taking a hit at that position a little bit because I want to add that player. Now, most times that player wouldn't pan out, or I was using say like all your quarterbacks are on a bye, and you want to pick up this other quarterback because he's like Garrett Gilbert, for example.
Sure.
But the only person you could put down your taxi squad is Jonathan Taylor. Well, you're gonna put down Jonathan Taylor and pick up the quarterback for just a week and then put him back down. Same thing.
Yep, absolutely. I totally get it.
It's very subjective of when you do it and when you don't.
It's subjective, and that's fantasy football in a nutshell. Everyone's got a different opinion. That's why my rankings are different than yours, and yours are different than Garrett's, and it's all subjective.
So the taxi squad, it's important. It can cause some controversy, and you can manipulate it.
Woo!
Yeah.
All of that.
Yes, it is.
All of that in one fun taxi squad.
Now there's also divisions you can do. Do you like divisions? I've done it in leagues.
We've tried it, and
not a fan.
Not really. I don't really like it. No,
not a fan.
You end up playing a small group. It really just it closes your group down even more and gets you in a small little bubble, which isn't what I feel like this is for. You know what I mean?
It's already 12, 14 people. Like
exactly.
It's a small bubble.
It's a small bubble. You don't need it to be smaller. I get why some people like it. Like if you're in a league of relative strangers and you just want to be in a bubble with just yourself or and your 3 friends, then do divisions, I guess, and then you only see the other people, here and there,
playing
and then
once
in the playoffs, yeah.
And then teams that aren't as good get in the playoffs because they won their division, or
right, that's the thing.
Or maybe just like you have a really good team, but you're in everybody in your team's division, and then you have a garbage division, and those I don't like it.
No, I don't like it either. Our main premise on I think the way we set things up and why we like Dynasty is you say it all the time even when you're losing, you're winning. If you do divisions, you could have a really crap record, but end up, like you said, squeaking into the playoffs or something. Normally, with that same record, you would have been picking 4th, but all of a sudden now you're picking 7th, because you were bounced first in the playoffs. I think it's silly. I don't like divisions personally.
Yeah. Can't stand divisions is a stronger word. I think they're terrible. I don't think they're good, and I don't think they're fun. A rule that we do have that I think is fantastic is if you make the playoffs, right? So you make the playoffs. Most Dynasty teams, 12-man leagues, 6 teams make the playoffs. Top 2 teams get a bye.
Right.
After that, the two teams that lose that first round play each other.
Yeah.
Now,
Toilet bowl of sorts.
the toilet bowl, the losers bracket.
Right.
You know, your turd, play for the plunger.
Hey, let's see who's a bigger turd.
Yeah, woo, turd. So the problem with that game is what we learned.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to win that game,
Right.
Because the winner gets the worst draft
Gets
pick.
a crappier draft pick.
They go the 8th pick over the 7th pick
Right.
for the rookie draft. And
So we saw a lot of tanking in that game the first few years that
Yeah.
we did this.
people weren't starting their best lineups. They were
Right.
leaving Joe Burrow on their taxi squad. So we figured that out real quick after a couple of years saying, okay, we're going to change this rule.
Yep.
The winner of the losers bracket gets the higher draft pick.
Yeah. So that person will get the 7th pick as opposed to the 8th pick in a 12-man league.
And you're still playing for something even when you're losing.
You're
winning. So we recommend this for every Dynasty League possible. It's a true game changer. The losers bracket bowl plays for the higher pick. So when they play, somebody's getting the 7th pick, somebody's getting the 8th pick.
Yeah, and those are real stakes. I mean, there are some people that do like, gosh, I'm trying to think. They do other kind of prizes for that game or something like that. But who wants a prize?
No, I want to pick.
I want a better. I want
yeah.
a better player.
I want Kyle Pitts.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
So and there's a lot of drafts. There's a vast difference between the 7th player and the 8th player.
In certain draft years, that is a huge difference. That's where the cliff is at, and it makes a big difference, man. So if you can string together that one last win, you get the better draft position. I think it makes all the sense in the world to do it that way. I'm so glad that we adopted that rule. 10 or however many years ago, 15 years ago or something like crazy like that. But it makes so much sense that
all my leagues have it.
Everyone should do it. In my opinion, I mean, that's one of those fail-safe ones that you should definitely do that one.
And it prevents
if you don't pick up anything else from this podcast, pick up that.
There's another rule. Our friend Izzy Iflaskis from Dynasty Trade Calculator.
DTC.
We got in a league with them today. It's the Dynasty Nerds versus Dynasty Trade Calculator guys. I love all those guys.
Yeah.
And they're good friends. And Izzy had a good rule called the disrespect rule.
And that was this one. This was one of those rules where I was introduced late to the group me chat, and there was like 15 or 20 messages that I did not even know. And then you guys told me about the disrespect. I'm like, what are you talking about? So explain the disrespect bowl. I know it now, but I was so thrown off at first.
Shout out to Rob Wozniak, by the way. Shout out Rob for the 1-1.
Rob.
Shout out Rob Wozniak.
Trev.
Hey, one of the top Dynasty or fantasy football guys in the world today, Rob Wozniak. Not a great Dynasty Nerds Calculator startup league drafter. And I saw it from day one. So disrespect draft is for the first round only. When you do an initial startup after the draft, everybody goes through. Whoever had the last pick picks first, I think. Is that what we did? Like, so you have the 12th pick or something?
I feel like it was a randomized.
Oh,
it was a randomized
pick.
Year
randomized.
one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you go down in order, and you get to pick somebody else's team that you think will be the worst team in the league, and you get their first round pick.
Yep.
So now this is the only league I do it in, and it's probably one of the only leagues I would do it in, but I still love the rule. Like I love it for this league. I love it.
I was gonna say it takes a fun bunch, I think, to pull off.
Prevents tanking.
It definitely prevents tanking. And the banter that goes back and forth due to this rule is pretty amazing.
Rob Wozniak.
But as a purist, like it hurts my soul a little bit to know that I don't get my own first round draft pick.
And your team was bad.
Ever. Like I never get.
Well, I think now again, I wish we had Izzy on to talk about it. I think after the year's over, you could pick your own team, I believe.
Maybe not. We don't know how year 2 works, but
if you can't, then you just pick the second worst.
I was going to say, I feel like it just rolls over though, and the worst person gets to pick first.
Yeah. So
whoever finished.
So Rob Wozniak could finish first or worst. And I picked his team to finish worst. Yeah. So I had the 1-1.
Nailed it. You got Trev.
Yeah. Saw it clear as day, Rob.
Yeah. It's a super flex, so you're getting
Trevor
Lawrence. Yeah.
I'm taking Trevor Lawrence. Thanks for Trevor. And it's my only share of Trevor McGett. Thanks to Rob Wozniak. And it's going to be where now Rob will have the first choice of a different team that he wants to pick. So like you finish with the second worst team.
So I get to choose my
Rob would most likely pick your first round pick. Because the best odds But you never know. Some people just have a lot of injuries that year. They don't know. But what you do is you pick a team that
if he was smart, he would not. He would not pick mine. My team is on the rise.
On the rise up. So, but what's nice about that rule is it absolutely prevents tanking because you'll never have your own first round pick. So you're going to try and win as many games as possible, not to screw over the person as your first round pick. So I do like that rule. Now I'm a firm believer in the worst team. Like people are like, oh, you should do a lottery to prevent that.
Yeah.
No. The worst team in Dynasty should always get the first pick because it's the only way to have like fair competitive balance.
Yeah.
Over the years.
So with that in mind, I feel like this rule is not for the faint of heart. It's not for a newcomer to Dynasty. This is kind of one of those things where if you're kind of bored with some of the leagues that you're in, this is a good way to spice up your league. And you should have a fun bunch that can dish and take. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Because it's going to be that kind of nasty.
It's a shit talking league.
It's going to be that kind of nasty league where there's a lot of shit talking going on and a lot of back and forth. So I do like it from that respect. It hurts me, like I said, to not have my first round draft.
Well, you should have picked somebody else's. You should have picked Rob's pick.
You're right.
You should have.
You're right.
But then again, like I said, Dynasty's ever changing. But you could always pick like the following year somebody else's bad team, and you never know. So I like the rule. Mm-hmm. I would do it again in a different league with like friends, but again, it has to be like it's more of like it's a league industry league, so it's way more fun.
Exactly
that way. But yeah, you always pick. You go down in order. So like you have the second pick in the draft this year.
Well, I traded it because I knew that I did not have my own pick, so I just got frustrated by the end of the year and ended up. I got Antonio Gibson, so it wasn't like I gave it away. I was happy to have.
But you had somebody else's first round pick.
Exactly.
So it didn't matter.
No, it didn't matter.
Where it finished, but
we ended up finishing like back to back.
Okay.
Like
if you finish it, if you finish second, then you'd have the second pick of somebody else's team, and so on and so on. But then you do have your original pick after that. So like Rob has 2-1.
Right. Right.
And whatever other pick he has, that's not 1-1 for sure.
So yeah, I mean, there's still at least that where you get to pick high in the second round if you're bad. But
okay. Yeah. Then there's let's talk about why no kickers in defense.
Well, Rich, take the floor on this one. I mean, kickers in defense. I mean, I just feel like
terrible.
I hate
kickers in defense. You should play some solid defense and kick both of them out of your league.
Yeah.
It's a terrible rule. Kickers and defenses.
They're wasted spaces on your roster.
And again, we play Dynasty to get rid of that redraft luck, right?
Yeah.
All kickers and defenses do is introduce that random luck. All of a sudden, Justin Tucker had a 25-point game, and Tampa Bay had 5 interceptions, and one of them for a touchdown. They had 25 points game. Now, you just lost your league or playoff game because some dumbass kicker or some stupid defense scored 50 points, and it's just a random luck game. Now, there's no difference between your player that goes out there and catches 3 touchdowns in a game where it's random luck too, but it's like that is so random where anybody could do it. Well, I guess any player could do it too, but it's there's no consistency to it whatsoever. It's so luck. There's no year in, year out value to it.
I feel like
I hate it.
I feel like the NFL doesn't even like kickers. Like they're just trying to get rid of. They're like, oh yeah, why don't you kick a field goal? Why don't you kick an extra point from 50 yards next year? We hate you. Go for 2. Nobody likes you, you stupid kicker.
Take off your shoes.
Exactly. So I mean, sorry, kickers. It's nothing personal. But seriously, there's no need to have them on your dynasty. If you're starting a new one, don't make sure to not include them in your startup draft and in your plans. The defense, we've been trying to phase them out in many of our leagues for years. The best that we got in some of these long-standing leagues was
in one league. Yeah.
We limited the amount that you could have on your roster to 2. So that way, because there was people, I mean,
they hoard all the defense.
They hoard all the defense. There's absolutely nothing. So it forces you then to also hoard at least 2 on your roster. So that's 2 stupid spaces you're taking up for a defense. But now, we limited it to 2, so at least there's something on the waiver wire for most bye weeks and stuff like that. So it at least allows me to free up 1 spot by only keeping 1 stupid defense on my team in some leagues. But
no new leagues we do have kickers and defenses. None. They're all banned. And yes, we are still our old league, which is going to year 18, still has kickers and defenses. Every year. I vote. So we
bring it up, we vote, and it gets shot down. It's getting closer.
It's getting way closer.
It's getting closer.
So originally it was only 3 people would vote yes to get rid of it. We're up to 6.
We are up to 6.
One more person. Kickers, defense is gone forever. When I screenshot our league, people are like, "Whoa, you still play kickers and defenses?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's 18 years old."
They just
won't give it up.
The habit.
And so one guy's like, "Well, I have Justin Tucker. Why would I vote for a different rule?" I'm like, "Yeah, fair point."
Yeah, fair point. But everyone hates these stupid kickers.
And then there's also keeper versus true dynasty. Some people play in keeper leagues and they say it's a dynasty league. That's not true.
No, I'm in one keeper league.
Just play dynasty. What's the point?
Right, and that guy recently joined a dynasty league with me, so we'll see if we'll see if he retains his love for the keeper league. I know the keeper league is very close to his heart. It's a very friends oriented league that he's had for a long period of time, so it's probably not going anywhere. But
our dynasty league started off with a lot of people that were in a redraft league, and we played keeper league, and that's how it started. Like, oh, I want to keep this player. Like, oh, what if we keep more players? And I'm like, oh, there's a thing called a dynasty league where you're supposed to keep all your players. Like, okay, what are the rules? I don't know. Let's make them up.
Yep.
So yeah, a keeper league, you just keep a couple players or a draft spot. I don't like them. Just play dynasty.
it's like a mishmash. It's kind of like a gateway drug to dynasty. I feel like that's the best way to describe it.
Bill Cosby's pouring you that one.
That's the best way to.
That doesn't make sense.
Please don't say Bill Cosby on this show.
That was a wrong analogy.
Yeah, it was.
I said gateway drugs. I was just thinking people would take advantage of people with drugs, and that was Bill Cosby.
That was Bill Cosby.
He's a bad man.
Moving on,
please.
So yeah, I mean, there's obviously some other nuances and different kind of leagues too. You and I aren't necessarily specialists in them, but there's IDP. The one actually, the keeper league that I'm in is IDP oriented as well, and it opens up a whole new, I guess, ball of wax.
I'll never play in one.
It's not something I like. It's not something I love. I you know what I mean? I'm in it. I like the people that are in it, so I'm still in the league. I don't love IDP though.
IDP people love it, and I encourage you, if you into that, try it. Because other people, like my good friend John Glosser, who leads our IDP team, who does a great job with that, swears by it.
Yeah,
you know I just tell people, like, I put too much time into like what I do now with Dynasty. Like I'm not a casual player. Like I have to study these players. I don't have time to study all these defensive players.
That's the thing. That is definitely the thing with it. It's very time consuming. Even just setting a lineup is more time consuming because you have to. There's 8 or 9 more people that you have to check to make sure they're not on their bye week and fill a spot. It's just like, oh my gosh.
But it might be your thing.
Yeah.
We have a great Dynasty team or IDP team. Our staff. You should check those out.
Right.
There's the Debbie. Is very popular now too.
Explain Debbie for
you draft kids out of high school.
Yeah, basically it's you have them throughout their entire college process and into the pros, right? I mean, it's
same thing. Or that's just you draft college players. I think Canton to Canton leagues.
Yes, CDC campus to Canton.
Campus to Canton
is high school all the
way to. It's crazy.
All the way through the pros.
If Garrett was here today, he'd be talking about this. Garrett and Jared are all about that. We have a really good Campus to Canton League staff on there, like Matt McCoy. We have a really good, strong Debbie team like Jared Wackerly, Garrett Price. So whatever these leagues are, the most important thing is we've got you covered at dynastynerds.com.
Right. And I think they're planning on doing videos to cover all those, the IDP, the Debbie, the CDC.
Check it out. Yeah, we're gonna have a lot of videos on our YouTube channel.
That'll be coming soon. Yep.
If you're watching YouTube now, thanks for watching. If not, subscribe. Hit that likes button, notification button, subscribe button, get on there. We have the YouTube channel. We have a lot of unique YouTube content coming out throughout the offseason as well. Just as we have so much unique content on dynastynerds.com. Make sure you check that out. You got to use that Dynasty GM tool like we always talk about. The Dynasty GM tool.
Only getting better.
Yeah, they have this new draft board coming up there for all your draft picks, so you'll be able to see.
Yeah, we saw a little behind the scenes this past week. It was awesome.
You'll be able to see your draft board for your league, and we're going to tinker with that. We have so many more things coming through GM. Again, we have the trade calculator on there, your league analyzer. So
league analyzer is my favorite thing. It's still, it was one of the first things.
In Dynasty. The best tool in Dynasty if you're in multiple leagues. It lets you manage your leagues
so quickly.
It tells you where your strengths are, where your weaknesses are, and where everybody else's strengths or weaknesses
in this nice visual chart that's right there in front of you. Boom.
Yep. Trade calculator, team portfolio, player cards to show you where all these players are in every league. It's the best tool in Dynasty Fantasy Football today, and it's absolutely free to try.
Yep.
All you got to do is go to dynastynerds.com, click on it, put in your you put in your email, and that's it.
That's it, man.
And then you get to try for 3 days, and you'll stay forever.
Yep.
Check it out, dynastynerds.com. We all cool stuff on there, good content, free content. Our rankings are about to be up there for free here really soon too. So everybody can use those and utilize those, and check out some free Dynasty Nerds gear. Not free, but you can buy some of that stuff.
Look at this swag.
Support the site.
Yep.
And that's it for the show.
All right, buddy.
We'll be back next week with some healthy guys.
All right. I'm at Dynasty Matt.
I'm at Dynasty Rich.
Adios.